Hey, and welcome back. As a recruiter, it's important for me to stay up to date with the state of the job economy. This means I keep a close eye out for the US Department of Labor's monthly job report. So in this video, we're going to take a quick look at the state of the US job economy as of May 2022. But before we get started, as always, remember to like, subscribe, click that bell. Really means a lot. The US Department of Labor and the Department of Labor Statistics provide some of the most important information about the economy in their monthly job report. It provides a look into the current state of the employment, the current size of the workforce, and the percentage of Americans working or actively searching for a job, how many jobs were added the previous month, and the current unemployment rate. The pandemic had a disastrous effect on the US job market, if you remember correctly, with around 22 million jobs lost at the beginning of 2020. As a result, these reports have become especially valuable in determining the current trajectory of the job market and indeed the overall economy as a whole. But alongside greater world events such as the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the US economy faces a number of roadblocks locally as well, including increasing inflation and an ongoing labor shortage. But despite this, we do seem to be approaching a return to pre-pandemic health. Let's quickly review these issues before moving on to see how well the US is currently faring against them. Past events. The Great Resignation. One of the hottest recurring topics in my videos is the Great Resignation. I did a whole video on the subject, so I invite you to go back and give that a watch if you haven't done so already. I'll keep it brief here though. Prior to the pandemic, many employees were unhappy with their current position. They were given the push they needed after the economic upheaval triggered by the pandemic. Employees who weren't laid off found that their roles were drastically altered to incorporate remote work practices. This resulted in a mass exodus of employees who went looking for better paying work that provided the convenience of a work from home model they discovered was possible due to the pandemic. The US now sees itself in a labor shortage as a result. Labor shortage. The labor shortage continues to affect employers across a variety of industries. While the labor force is growing, it is outpaced by the number of jobs being created. While this leaves the state of the job economy in constant flux, the good news is that employers are offering higher wages, better benefits, and more flexible work hours. Candidates have more hiring power than ever before, so keep this in mind if you're planning on making a career switch. Widespread inflation. Last December saw the highest inflation rates the US has seen in years. While it has settled somewhat in the subsequent months, consumers are still seeing record high prices that are greatly outpacing the wage growth. The ultimate reason for the inflation remains murky, even to economists. Inflation is the result of demand exceeding supply, but the greater machinations behind this can really be hard to pin down. In this case though, the pandemic certainly had a lot to do with it, thanks to the 3 stimulus checks given out during the course of the lockdowns. Consumers found themselves with excess spending power. But unfortunately, the supply chains were still recovering, resulting in a shortage that drove up prices. Job recovery might be slowing down as a result of inflation, but Business Insider states that there is no reason to panic. Current events. Despite these struggles, things are looking good overall for the US economy. 95% of jobs that were lost at the beginning of the pandemic have returned, and employees across most industries are continuing to hire in record numbers. Jobs created. The United States Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that the economy is 390,000 jobs stronger as we move out of May 2022. Unfortunately though, this represents the smallest increase since April 2021. However, the good news is that the final number is significantly higher than the 325,000 analysts predicted. At 822,000 total payrolls, the United States is just 0.5% below its pre-pandemic levels, signaling a potential return to the strong labor market we once had and moving closer to full employment. So as we move into the summer months here in the United States and the pandemic continues to wind down, we're seeing the most job growth in leisure and hospitality sectors at 84,000 jobs added. This is almost certainly because we're ready for some much needed time away from the heights of the pandemic. This is still 1.3 million payrolls short of its pre-pandemic average, but we might be beginning to see a slow but sure return to normal. The next largest sector to see growth is the professional and business service industries with a total of 75,000 jobs added in May. Additionally, transportation and warehousing added 47,000 jobs. Last but not least, we have construction heading up the rear with 36,000 jobs added. On the other hand, we've had significant drops in payrolls across the retail industry with 61,000 lost in May. There are a number of interesting reasons for this. The chief being Americans were eager to go out and shop in person as the pandemic slowed down and stores began to reopen. As a result, businesses were eager to hire new employees. Things seem to be balancing back out now. Less shoppers at retail locations mean less need for employees. Insider reports that retailers are in excess of almost 160,000 payrolls compared to pre-pandemic numbers. So prepared for further drops in the retail industry as they figure out the best way forward. April's job count has been updated. While it was initially reported at 436,000, it now stands at 428,000. It seems as though March's initial report count of 428,000 dropped even more significantly down to 398,000. But despite the apparent slowdown in job growth, Glassdoor economist Daniel Zhao states this shouldn't be cause for concern. Business Insider quotes Zhao, quote, "The labor market is still strong, with near record high labor demand and record low layoffs. This doesn't look like a labor market about to tip into recession yet." Unemployment rate. So at the beginning of the pandemic, it should come as no surprise that the unemployment rate spiked. Now that it's settled back down, it has remained fairly consistent over the past few months. This remained the case in May, with the unemployment rate once again continuing to stagnate at 3.6%, again exceeding the 3.5% forecasted by analysts. The good news is that this is actually lower than the pre-pandemic rate of 3.7, although it could stand to increase or drop in the coming months. Labor force participation. Another helpful metric released by the BLS is the labor force participation. This measures the percentage of Americans that are working or actively looking for it. Although the Great Resignation continues to have an effect on the labor shortage, we are seeing a slight increase in labor participation, increasing from 62.2 in April to 62.3 in May. Wage increases. In other good news, Insider also reports that the average hourly earnings rose 10 cents, or 0.3%. Although this does represent the smallest increase since February. The Federal Reserve interest rate and its effect on the job economy. In the last job economy report video, I talked a little bit about the Federal Reserve interest rate and its effect on the economy. In short, the Federal Reserve interest rate affects how much money businesses are able to borrow and invest. If the Federal Reserve sees the economy growing too quickly, they will increase the interest rate, making it more expensive for businesses to take out loans and therefore slowing down their growth. Conversely, the Reserve decreases inflation if the economy begins to slow down, allowing businesses to take out larger loans and increase their growth. Typically, a higher federal interest rate means slower job growth because companies have less money to spend on hiring and retaining employees. On March 16, 2022, as a result of the rapid growth the economy experienced coming out of the pandemic, the Federal Reserve increased its interest rates for the first time in 2 years in an attempt to combat the rising inflation. Now that over 2 months have passed, we can get a much stronger picture of what effect this had on the job market. While the March 2022 interest rates does seem to have slowed job growth down slightly, this is definitely a unique case. Insider reports that we're likely to see continued growth into the summer. Overall, we didn't see any major revelations in this job economy report, but this is definitely a case of no news is good news. The US continues to slowly but surely return to a state of economic health resembling what it looked like prior to the pandemic. So this just about wraps up this video on the state of the economy, but given its current state, I'm sure there'll be a lot more to be said as things will change in the coming months. Do you have anything to add to the conversation? I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to comment down below. If you like this video, want to see more like it, please hit that like, subscribe, click that bell. Really means a lot. Feel free to also follow me at press_park as I try my best to also post daily. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one.